Needed today. None. No preface. You see the screen. We see the screen. We're down to business today.
Mm-hmm.
This is a special PP1 podcast. Not only because you and I are in person once more.
That hasn't been for a while.
This is feels like pre-COVID. We have this self-proclaimed Clone Envy guest, James Duthie from TSN. You might have seen him on TV. You may have heard his podcast. Apparently everyone has a podcast.
You could have been watching the Amazing Race Canada wrap-up episode.
Yep, also possible.
Ted, I think you're the only one who remembers I did that.
He is, because I asked, I said, are you sure? He goes, no, for sure. So
do you remember what you missed out on, Ryan, there is that I they were trying to make me look kind of reality show after show hip for that show. So I had just a nice dress shirt on and jeans, but
yeah,
I had maybe one extra button open, which was in retrospect a mistake. They had like a stylist there, because once you get into the reality shows, they have stylists and stuff. TSN has none of that crap. And so she said, yeah, one more button. And then I heard about it a lot from my buddies. So anyway.
That's what we do. That's what us guys do. If there's like a remote chance we can bust you, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So James Duthie, he's basically the godfather of trade deadline day. And which is, I've said this for as long as hockey has been in my blood. This should be a national holiday, even though it has changed over the years. I still believe that trade deadline day needs to be a national holiday. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I will keep pining for this.
It's a big. Can we compare the trade deadline day for the NHL to the CFL? Is it
the same?
We close on those?
I wouldn't want to anger BC's own Farhanology.
He was already busting chops today on you, so apparently the Peloton crowd is very, very, very brutal. So
I would say, over the years, certainly the NBA has maybe surpassed the NHL as far as the quality of deals that happen. They still don't do a 10-hour show like we do, but they're getting close to that. But I don't think any league has really captured the spirit of what we do on Trade Center yet. I don't know if that's necessarily
it's brag,
good or bad thing.
No, you know what? I think the NHL they've made it a thing, and obviously, at the time when I guess it would have been like early 2000s, and when trades really did come down to the deadline, not like the week prior, 3 days before, and there'd be the odd one where you guys are sitting there like, well, please, baby Jesus, make sure there's a trade today, because we have 10 hours and we're going to start talking about pizza toppings. So
I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and I can't remember the year. You guys can probably look it up on your computer machines, but there was one particular year that was really slow, and I want to say it probably goes back like 2013, 14 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And we had nothing. We go on at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's usually quiet in the morning. That's just the way it is. But usually you get one trade at 10, trade at 11, something like that, and then it starts to heat up in the afternoon. We had nothing until 1 o'clock, and the trade that happened was two hockey legends. It was Rob Flick for Maxime Sauvé. I don't know if either one of them had set foot in the NHL, and that was the first deal that we had that day. And it was ludicrous. And we actually, that trade, if it happens any other day of the year, it doesn't even get a whiff of a mention anywhere on TSN or any of the networks.
It might not even make the ticker.
And on that day, we probably spent 15 minutes, and then we had Rob Flick on the phone. I always do the phone interviews after the guys get traded. And I think my first question to Rob Flick was, Rob, welcome to Trade Center, James Duthie with you. Who the hell are you?
I play hockey.
How does that work? Because the phone thing's great. Like when somebody gets dealt, is there just it just goes out to the league like gentleman's agreement? James is calling.
No, well, Gino actually. This doesn't make any sense, because every other network in the world you'd have a team of people calling people, but Gino actually does this for us when he's not on air. He, between the insiders and myself and Gino, we have a lot of the players' numbers. So Gino kind of off camera will we'll call a guy if he gets dealt, if we have the number, or call the agent and try and get the guy on the line. And then Gino will basically yell at me, we got him, or yell at the producer, or the producer will say in my ear, we have a blank blank on the phone, and off we go. And that's one of the challenges for me, because frankly, sometimes my head is spinning and I'll get a guy, and it happens really rapidly, right? It'll be like,
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to think of a random player who was traded last year. I can't even think of any, but okay, James, we got Ryan Dzingel on the phone.
There you go.
And in my head, I'll start the interview. I'm like, where the hell did he get traded to?
Like
right?
it's one of those, you know it, but on the spot,
Yeah,
like, oh shoot, I forgot everything I know about the sport.
Ryan, congratulations. How do you think you'll fit in with your new team? You know, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes back to me at some point.
Like when you meet somebody that you like haven't seen for a while and you bump into them and you're like,
hey bud,
hey man,
this is my wife. Yeah. And then, oh yeah, this is, and then if it gets to the awkward spot, we're like,
and by the way,
I
am terrible for that, because I'm not a fantastic name person. And so I told my wife, the one, it's not a curse of this business, but people will recognize you. And there are some people who handle it the wrong way. Like you meet them in an airport once, like 12 years ago, and then they see you again and they're like, hey, James, yeah, remember me? And I'll be like, no, I know, but I'm terrible. I'm always like, yeah, how's it going? Because I don't.
It's Rob Flick. Come on.
I don't like hurting people's feelings. So I'm like, yes, how are you? So my wife is very well trained to say, hey, I'm Cheryl. What's your name? And to help me out that way.
Oh,
that's smart. Now you said you're not good at names, but now I did some pre-scouting. My last 2 weeks have been pretty good on this. So and now Wikipedia, as we know, is factual. Everything on the internet, as you and I and Ted all know, is accurate to 101%. Is your full name actually James Forbes Duthie VI? And if so, here's my second question: do you get an honorary mention in the Forbes list every year?
Actually, believe it or not, Wikipedia has understated, because I am James Forbes Duthie VI. But my real name is James Forbes Ryburn Duthie, if the other one didn't sound pretentious enough. Those are the two names of my grandfathers. So on my dad's side was Forbes.
Yeah.
On my mom's side was Ryburn. I guess I didn't really like Ryburn's a weird name, so I usually just go by the Forbes. No offense to my other grandfather. Obviously on my passport I'm James Forbes Ryburn. But my friends actually call me Forbes. A lot of my friends from high school called me Forbes.
Oh man, I need to hear this like on Trade Center next week. Like that needs to get dropped somehow.
I don't know that any guys at the work. Everybody at work calls me Jimmy, so I don't even know if they know the Forbes thing. But I am the 6th, and my dad would always tell me. My dad's passed away now, but he'd always say, your son has to be the 7th, and my wife basically from day one was like, the madness ends right here. There will be no James Forbes the 7th. And it's weird because it sounds like just an old Scottish thing, because we're like, my dad came from dirt poverty. It's not like it sounds a lot more prestigious and regal and it sounds rich than it is, but it definitely was not.
That's awesome. So Wikipedia got it. We'll say right, obviously.
Semi-right. Yeah,
that's
semi-right.
That's pretty impressive. I could just stay home all day and just hopefully a Forbes gets dropped on there somehow. And I'm just going to tweet at everybody and find out like we need to hear one, and then I'll be like, this podcast is a success. We don't have to do another one after this.
I'll see what I can do for you.
Or not. So excellent. So. I mean, you're also an established author. We've got, you've done Beauties, and you've got the guy on the left. That's going to be my next read. Beauties is absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
It's, I always get these books for Christmas, and it takes me to like August to read them. And then I'll just plow through like 5 in like a week kind of thing. Was there one of these moments where like you've made it, but you're just thinking like, I can't, or like one of these stories where, like, where you're at in the sports sphere, and yet you still think, you're like, I can't believe this happened. Like, have you had one of those where like it hasn't made a book and you're like, this is ridiculous, right? Like in your head.
Oh, like you have a story, something that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Not something like I heard for Beauties or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I mean, I think I say it in Beauties. One of the ones is when I started out on that book, I didn't know if anybody was going to call me back, right? You always have that insecurity that, will anybody really want to talk to you, even though I've been doing this job for a long time and I know a lot of these guys, but and Bobby Orr, for instance, I had I'd interviewed Bobby before, but I didn't have any sort of relationship with him, no friendship or anything really, besides saying hi when I saw him somewhere. And he was one of the first. I sent an email, dear Mr. Orr, I'm doing this book. I know there's been a lot of books written about you. Is there any stories that you might have that aren't in any of your books that you might want to share with me? And I sent that note at like 10:30 on a Monday night or something, and said, I hope he gets back to me. That was in September, like before February, right? And I don't know, 8:00 the next morning, I get an unknown call on my cell, and I pick it up and hey, James, it's Bobby. Are you ready to hear my story? And I was like, what? And I tell this story in my book. I still hadn't figured out how to record phone conversations or do all the stuff that authors are supposed to know. And so the only thing I could think of was to put my phone on speaker, get my wife's phone and press the voice memo record and do it that way. But my wife was like on Amazon or like ordering something, or she was talking to some store, and I'm like, honey, it's Bobby. I got Bobby Orr on the phone. And she's like, yeah, no, but do those come in an extra small? And I'm like, no, honey, Bobby Orr. I did French. This went on for like 3 minutes until she finally figured out that
you don't know.
You don't know how important this is.
Yeah.
So that was one. I think that in my early days at TSN, like in the first few months I was at TSN, I got to interview Ronnie Lott, who, for your listeners who don't know, was a awesome safety for the San Francisco 49ers and was my favorite football player. Like Ronnie Lott and Tim Raines, baseball, were my probably two favorite athletes. And the last athletes I really worshiped before I got out of the stage of worshiping athletes, right? And got into the business. And Ronnie Lott came to TSN for something, and I got to interview him. And I think that was a moment where I sat there going, holy crap. Like, not that I've made it or anything, but I just I just never thought this little kid from the suburbs of Blackburn Hamlet would ever get to do these things. And so that was, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that was one of those cool moments for me. And another one would have been, I suppose, Tiger. I can't remember if I was told this story in The Guy on the Left, but I went to the 2005. One of the great things about the lockout in 2005 is I got to cover all four golf majors, and golf is a big passion of mine, as you guys may know. And we never got
all the more reason he needs to cover Kelowna.
Yes. Oh, I know. Exactly. We had never gotten a one-on-one with Tiger Woods after he'd won a major. TSN is usually there, but we're so far down the pecking order, it's not even feasible, right? And when a guy wins a major, usually he only does whoever is doing the network. Like, let's say when Cam Smith won the Players on Monday, he would have done an interview with NBC, and then he would have done his normal news conference, and that would have been it. So we basically felt they had no chance of getting Tiger, and I kind of sucked up to his agent all week, Mark Steinberg, and sucked up, and then waited outside the BBC, ABC tent where they were going to do the one-on-ones right after he won, and just kind of hung out there. And Tiger and his entourage come, and Steinberg's there, and I talked my way in, was able to get a one-on-one with Tiger. And I do remember, that's 2005 at the height of Tiger mania, before the Perkins waitresses and all that stuff. So
specifically Perkins waitresses.
He was probably the most famous athlete on the planet at that time. And I do remember sitting there going, holy crap, at St. Andrews as well. Right. So that was those were some of the moments that really stick out in my head.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you were talking about the one-on-one. Obviously you got that one-on-one with Tiger. And I was thinking about a one-on-one that you have with Luongo. after he was traded back to Florida.
Right.
This is the moment.
Us being,
I'm waiting.
this is a Vancouver Canucks podcast, basically,
waiting.
and we're out on the West. Can you please share with us what Strombone 1 means? Because none of us know.
Please.
And the rumor is that you do.
Please. This is like, I've been waiting. Like, this was one of those things.
So this is the only reason you guys had me on?
This is literally, no, I'm just kidding. No, I was looking and I'm going through, I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, the one-on-one with Luongo. This might be the only chance that this. Now, it's been enough time, and I think the people need to know.
Well, and I'm not. I would tell you if I knew 100% what it was. Okay, I really would. He has never told me exactly what it is, but I think if you look at the word, it's some, bunch of guys, young buddies. Some sort of, I think there must be some sort of penis connotation there.
Okay,
or
that's
something,
fair.
right? It's something stupid, guyish, sexual, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good enough.
You know what? That's further than we were 5 minutes ago. So
I think, and I might be totally wrong because I know I asked him, and I know he didn't tell me exactly. But I think at some point he inferred to me that that's what it was.
Like, figure it out. Here's essentially what it is. Figure it out.
Yeah, essentially the way I just sort of said it to you. He's like, just figure it out. It's dumb. It's stupid guy stuff. I think. Now, he could hear this and say I'm totally wrong. But as far as that, I mean,
I doubt he will hear this.
Did I ask him that? Did I ask him that in the one-on-one? Is that why
you did? Yeah. I think it was like almost the last question.
Oh, okay. So
now this is mid-interview with you, so hopefully you don't leave after this one.
No, I won't. I don't remember that interview except for except for the whole we got a divorce and she wanted me back or whatever, that great quote from it. And my contract was that my contract sucks interview? No, that was he did that at the news conference. Yeah. That was that I do remember that interview, flying down to Florida for that, because it was the first time he'd spoken since the whole trade of Schneider at the draft. It was, and I don't really do a lot of exclusives. You know what I mean? I don't do that a lot, but I had a pretty good relationship with Louis, and yeah, so that was I remember him. He legitimately is a really good dude. He's a legit good dude, and he was not nervous for that interview, but he was careful because he really did love Vancouver. He just hated the way it ended, and I remember him not wanting to come across in any way looking, he's just a good. He's a good dude, and it was different for me because I know him very well, and but I have to ask, I had to ask the tough questions, and he knew that going in. But
I mean, you did go to Florida. So yeah,
I did go to Florida to do it.
Some stuff I have to get off for everybody here.
Essentially, yes.
You talked about the slow trade deadline day. What was it, like 2014, 2015? The Max Sauve, Rob Flick trade deadline day. How does it? I mean, normally it's fairly active. There's a fair amount going on. Some years are bigger than others, and it's all these insiders. I feel like what we see on TV is that all these insiders sort of gathering in one place, and it's like, who has all the context? Who's breaking the news? Like, how does it work there when somebody breaks something? Is it almost like cops getting together with their informants and saying, like, I'm the one that broke it first, and it's like this bravado? Or is it like chill? Like, I envision just this incredible amount of hustling going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I don't really have a full picture of what those guys do because I've never actually sat back with them. It's always, Gord, Bob, Pierre, Dregs, Chris Johnston will be part of that now. And I'm at a separate desk with a million other things to worry about, right? So in some ways, I see as much as you guys do at home. I will say this, though. I think I'll give you one little inside baseball. I think often it's the opposite of what you think, that instead of those guys rushing to break the stories themselves, they actually give the scoops to the guy next to them to protect their source.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's
so interesting.
So if everybody knows that Darren Drager is close to so-and-so assistant general manager or general manager, right?
Right.
That possibly if Dregs were to get something, he would give it to Bob, and Bob would report it, which just, again, this is partially just my belief, but I believe that has happened at times. I don't know if that happens.
As you've been in the room, that's how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's kind of stuff goes on. They also have to divvy up, who they talk to, because a lot of them during the year have the same sources. If just because I'm just throwing out a name because it's your market. So if Jimmy Rutherford knows Bob well, knows Drags well, knows Pierre well, not all three of them are going to be phoning Jimmy Rutherford at the same time to bother him, right? So I think with the insiders, there's a divvying up of, okay, I got this 5-6 teams, you got this 6 teams, whatever, and they go that way. And sometimes there's a piggyback, but for the most part, they try to divvy it up and make sure all the teams are covered that way. There are times where I get stuff. I can remember there was one particular year where it was a contract year for me, so I was in like contract negotiations, and so I had a buddy who worked for an agency, and he was feeding me so much stuff because he wanted me to make me look good. It was the one year where I was just getting scoop after scoop, and I can remember looking back at Bobby, and he's like, "What is going on?
How are you get?" That was going to be my question. Yeah, I was going to say, like, do you ever get scoops, and you're like, "Let me break one. Let me break one."
And mostly I don't care because that's not my job, and I actually pride myself on being the outsider. Because the one thing I also think that with those guys, the real challenge they have is they have to do a lot of people get mad at them on that day, right? Like people will say, don't report this or whatever, and maybe they're forced into reporting it if they have other information, and they end up having to do massaging after the day is over with a lot of their contacts. And I've always wanted to not have any of that to do, A, and B, I always want to feel, because my role is usually with the other panel analyzing games, that I don't want to be real good buddies with some assistant general manager if I have to rip his team or rip the job they're doing, which I don't do that a lot, but you know what I'm saying? So I prefer, I don't have a lot of the close relationships that those guys have with GMs and even players. I used to know a lot more players than I do now. Like 10, 15 years ago, I'd probably have 200 players' phone numbers, but there came a point where, I'm at the draft and I start to feel creepy as like a 40-year-old man asking some 18-year-old guy for his number, right?
But I mean, I guess that's the business, but yeah, I get where you're coming from.
And I know it really legitimately felt that way to me, so I just stopped. I stopped even bothering. And the relationships I have with a guy like Luongo, those are few and far between now. And I almost think it's better that way, to be just at a distance from him. Right.
But you kind of know your spot, I guess. Like, as far as how, like, your role at TSN and Bell Media, like, you kind of know where you sit. Like, you're not asked to be like all of these things. Like, this is kind of where you sit. So for you to have all those extra contacts, not like they're not great, but it doesn't really serve anybody.
It doesn't matter. I don't need to break stories, and if I get a piece of information, I'll usually just pass it off to one of the guys anyway. I mean, my job is to be like what you guys do. My job is hopefully to ask the questions like you're asking today, or what people want to know at home. I mean, not what Strombone 1 really means, but you know what I'm saying.
That is going to be the big thing that we talk about after, though.
Essentially, my job is to be a somewhat informed fan who will hopefully ask the questions that the people at home would like to ask in most occasions.
Right. So as we said, this is a Canucks-based podcast, PP1 Podcast. And obviously, a couple of years ago, kind of how it all started, everyone's always talking, who's going to be on the power play? Well, there's a guy on the power play that everybody's talking about. He's done okay this season. He's done okay in the last 50 or so games. JT Miller. Since he's essentially played himself, you could say, either off the market or to a point where it's almost unreachable for some teams, like has the Canucks situation like realistically changed since this has kind of all come? And like they're 1 point out of a wild card, but realistically they're 1 point out of a wild card, and the same thing could still be said that a guy like JT Miller, as far as this market is concerned, and because we talk about it all the time, that he should, if we could get a king's ransom for him and build for the future, that'd be great. But like from, I guess, what you're hearing or what you guys see from out east there, because we're in the absolute fishbowl and vacuum of the lower or of British Columbia, what does it look like from your guys' view? And like, what are everybody kind of saying that way, that what the Canucks are trying to get into?
Well, again, I'll preface this with being I don't pretend to have any real inside information. I'll leave that to the other guys. I would say that there's no way he gets traded just because, like you say, they're too much in the hunt, and he's been their best player essentially. The other thing I would add to that would be there are still people, the unrealistic ideas of the other teams. Let's say Toronto, for instance. The general thought would be, all right, why don't we go get JT Miller? We'll give them a first-round draft pick and Pierre Engvall and a couple of things, right? And it's just that is a typical, and I'm not just throwing Toronto fans, like that is the typical reaction, right? We'll give a first-round draft pick and a couple other things.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that just because we're using that example, the Leafs, if the Leafs were to really want JT Miller and the Canucks decided they were going to trade JT Miller, it would be like the Rasmus Sandins and William Nylanders of the world that would be those, one of those along with a first round pick. It's not, you're not getting a first round pick in garbage. You're getting something substantial, a real substantial young player and other stuff. I think that guy has played himself into, like you say, you better get a bonanza or forget about it with another year on his contract. So I just don't think that's happening. I think Besser's much more of a realistic possibility, whether it be now or maybe more likely later. But I think that there's a better chance that Besser's not with the Canucks when next season starts for sure.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I'm not saying he won't be.
It would hurt my heart, but
I'm not saying Besser is getting traded.
No. We would never do that because, quite frankly, I don't think anyone would be like, those guys don't know what they're talking about.
I would just think way more than. I would be much more surprised JT Miller got traded than I would be if Brock Besser got traded.
Back to the trade thing. So we had Vern Fiddler on the show a couple of years back, and he was telling this crazy story about when he was dealt, that his phone was actually stolen and he wasn't able to receive the call. He had
it broke. It broke.
It was being repaired, and then the person lost all of his data and all of his contacts and had to wipe his phone. It was this ridiculous story. And everyone and their dog was trying to get a hold of Vern to let him know that he'd actually been dealt. And it made me think that that's one guy, and you guys deal essentially with all the guys. Like, you have information for everything when it's happening. So do you have any just ridiculously random stories that took place over the years with players, one or more or whatever, that you're just in that mode of I can't believe it happened like that? It's so crazy.
Well, the one you guys might remember is why am I having a brain cramp right now? Too long a day. Chris, brother Anthony's on Sportsnet.
Stewart. Chris Stewart, yeah.
Chris Stewart, sorry.
Yeah.
Chris Stewart. So when Chris Stewart got traded from, I don't know, Minnesota to Buffalo or something like that, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And, that was one of those situations where Gino yells, "We got Chris Stewart on the line," and suddenly he's live on TV. And I say, "Chris, what's your reaction to the deal?" And he says, "What's the deal?" And I say, "You don't know where you're going?" And he goes, "No." Oh. And I said, "Oh, okay, you're going to Minnesota." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And that was extremely awkward.
Got the tension.
And I did, everyone in the studio was kind of laughing, which made it, it was funny at the moment, but I do, try to remember on these days, as much as it's a bit of a clown show and we have llamas and things sometimes in the studios, I do try to remember that these are lives that are impacted, right? And not just the player, but wives and kids that get yanked out of school. I do have a conscience and a heart to think of that at the bottom of my head. And so I felt awkward about that because, I guess it's good TV to break a trade to a guy where he's going, and he handled it incredibly well. But that's not the way you should find out about a trade. And in his case, because our insiders are so good, and and we're quick to pick up the phone, we got the guy's number, boom, he's on, and no one's told him he's been traded, and it's live on the air. So that's definitely one. There was another one where my good buddy Duthie bagged me really badly. Aaron Ward, before he was a panelist, got traded, and I knew Aaron, and we went to the same high school in Ottawa, and he called me and said, I just got traded to Boston, from the Rangers to Boston, I think. And so I literally crawled under the desk to take the call. He's like, yeah, I just got traded from the Rangers to Boston. So we're in a commercial break, and went to commercial break. We come out of commercial break. I said, Aaron Ward's been traded from the Rangers to the Bruins. And I threw over to Duthie for something for an update. And Duthie's like, hey, good job on that trade. Where'd you get that from? And I'm like, oh, just the sources. He goes, no, Aaron called you. And I'm like, oh, God. Duthie's the best. And
I love this impression, too.
He's the best at giving you the gears, right? But that was one where he shouldn't have said that. And because now, the Rangers or the Bruins are screaming at Aaron saying, why did you leak that trade? We haven't even told the other guys. So that was another one that stuck out of my head.
Oh, man. It's such a, it is such an interesting day as a whole. I think, like I said, I love it. As a kid, you always tried to oh yeah, I think I'm coming down with something. I should probably stay home. Right. And it's just had this aura to it. And I think it has changed a little bit, obviously, with social media and everything now as well. But I think it still holds that special place in a lot of hockey fans, especially in Canada anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's about breaking trades as much anymore, right? That's what it used to be about, right? Who broke the most trades? Nobody cares anymore. Yeah. The teams break half of them. Does anyone care if Pierre LeBrun tweets something 30 seconds before Elliot Friedman? No one cares at all. So I think it's more about, getting the information out there correctly and doing good analysis and having fun. And that's basically the way we look at it. Mm-hmm. It's complete and utter lunacy. Yeah. We all know that, right?
Cards are on the table.
The people that always go oh, what are you guys idiots doing the show? We know it's dumb. Yeah, we have self-awareness on this. Yeah. Okay? And that's the reason we have the stupid things that we've done in the past there, because we know that it's dumb. But for whatever reason, I just look at it as a celebration of how kooky we are about hockey in this country, that we would do a 10-hour show involving mostly trades for seventh defensemen and third round picks, right? Mm-hmm. I just think it's the perfect, encapsulation of how crazy we are in Canada, and that's why I love it.
Beautiful. You've been very kind with your time, and we know you've got to get to work. I have one final question. I promise it won't take very long.
Yeah, it's all good.
Ted
if you got a couple more, I got a couple more minutes.
So this one, because we're, like I said, we're seriously unserious on our show, and because we're not going to ask the wheels versus doors question. I do not want the answer for that one. Zellers, Sears, or Woolco. If you could have one of those back, what would it be?
I was a big
screw Kmart. They're not Canadian.
I think all of the Forbes Duthies were big Zellers people. There was a Zellers in the east end of Gloucester. I think
the Midnight Madness with all the balloons.
I think Woolco was sometimes Mom would get dressed up and go downtown to Woolco. Woolco in my world, Woolco was like Saks Fifth Avenue when Mama went in there.
Welcome to Canada, folks. Yeah,
that was a big deal if Mom got a sweater from Woolco for Christmas. That's right.
Yeah, James, put on your slacks. Wear a nice shirt. We're gonna go to Woolco. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, that's so
honestly good. If this is the one little thing, one tidbit that people bring in a bit, not the.
They could add that to my Wikipedia.
That's true.
Wiki. James Forbes Duthie 6, big Zellers fan.
Typing right now. Ted, did you have a final one for James?
No, I just wanted to say thanks. I know we are sort of running up on time, but we like to just take a minute to just sort of do the shameless plug time. So like, tell us what's going on with you, maybe what we can look forward to, Trade Center, new books on the horizon, all that good stuff. Just please tell us, what's going on with James Duthie.
Oh, thank you. No new books to plug. The one thing I find about writing books is that it takes a lot out of me, and I take about 3 or 4 years between them, and I always say I'll never write another one because it's just TV's really easy compared to book writing, and so they want me to write a sequel to Beauties because it's done fairly well, but I can't wrap my head around dedicating a year to doing it yet. So somewhere down the line, maybe. I have my own podcast, but I like to keep it low profile. I'm the only guy who doesn't plug their podcast. I like a small base audience because some of the topics go a little offside on that podcast.
We just asked you about Sears and Woolco. Listen, bud,
right.
I think we're about par aside from that.
It's called the Rubber Boots Podcast. It's really dumb, but it's fun. I got a lot coming up. This is kind of a time of the year where my worlds are colliding. So trade deadline happens, and then I'm going to put on a soccer hat for a while and host the World Cup draw after Canada qualifies, which they will surely next week, which will be a massive deal. So I will try to not screw that up. And the day after the World Cup draw, I fly to Augusta to do the Masters. So busy time, but a wonderful time. Super lucky to do all those things.
We may need to text you some photos. We might need to get you a Masters. We have a PP1 Masters collection that I've just ordered today. So we might need to. Not like you're gonna wear it at the Masters. That'd be weird. But
like a T-shirt? You got
we got hats, T-shirts. It's that's the one thing we're known for, our swag. So
if you send me a hat, if you send me something, I will wear the hat at Augusta National and take a photo for you guys.
I'm ordering one more as soon as we're done here.
Unreal. All right. That's James? the least I could do for a couple of Kelowna boys. I said this off air before we started, but I will tell your listeners, I have Kelowna is one of my kind of dream retirement spots. I don't know if it'll ever happen because I hope to work in TV as long as they'll have me. And unfortunately, I kind of got to work in Toronto for this. But I was a BC boy. I lived in Victoria when I was a kid. My dad's from BC. And Kelowna, I have a lot of friends out there. I would love to move to Kelowna. So at some point, hopefully, I'll come out and join you, gentlemen.
Just let us know when you got a week. We'll make sure we got tea times.
At the very worst, we'll hit Predator for a round. It'll be good.
Done.
Damn straight. Thanks, boys.
Done. Thank you, James. Have a good show tonight.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you, brothers.
Yeah, this has been here. Let me just we're gonna end the stream.